Front runners were joined by Mazola Molefe, Soccerladuma journalist, just to try and break down the Kaizer Chiefs COVID saga. From your understanding, Mazola, what have you picked up?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously I picked up a few days before that there were COVID cases at Chiefs, but obviously due to, the privacy of 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 the entire situation, I couldn't, I couldn't write the story. I simply couldn't write the story. I just, decided to wait for the club to issue a statement themselves with regards to the letter that they've written to the league and all of that. So, but once that had happened, that opened the door for us at Soccerladuma to be able to reveal some of the information that had come to us. That obviously before the game against Swallows, Chiefs already had. I mean, if you noticed, Stuart Baxter made about 6 or 7 changes. In as much as the game against Amazulu was poor, but you wouldn't have expected Stuart to make so many changes, especially given the fact that they were trying to push up the log table and the team was starting to come together. So for him to dismantle it by making 7 changes and just put it down to tactics, that couldn't have been, So already then there were players that had been ill. Or not feeling well, maybe showing symptoms and whatever. And I think after that, more players then seemingly tested positive for COVID. And hence we had the situation we had last week where they asked the league to move the fixture or basically postpone their fixtures for the rest of the year. Basically, Chiefs were asking to only play football in February, which is, I think it was a bit of a stretch from that sense to ask the league to postpone 5 games. When the league has already got so many commitments. I mean, to ask that the league postpone 1 game in the midst of, a COVID outbreak and have players isolate, maybe, okay, that I think that made sense, even though they probably knew that was not going to be approved because the league had already set a precedent in January with the Glad Africa situation. Involving Cape Umoya and Cape Town Spurs, So yeah, that's what had happened, and I think obviously with the club confirming it, it opened the door for us to reveal what we had been told. The fact that they had about 13 players or so available. I'm told in that 13 it included 3 goalkeepers. So in actual effect, maybe they would not have been able to put together a starting lineup. I think the City Press reported this past weekend that the Chiefs MDC team had actually already gone on recess, so they were not able, and some of them were writing exams, so they are not able to call them up, because that's what you would do. That's why you've seen other clubs bringing so many of their MDC players. Yes, some of the well, it's DDC now, but some of the Diski Challenge players are good enough for the top flight. Some are just being fast-tracked, sadly, unfortunately. Fortunately for them, but unfortunately for the club, because of COVID, So when senior players are ill, the club decides to call the younger guys from the reserve league to fill the gap, But unfortunately, it sounds like Chiefs couldn't do that because of exams, and some of the players maybe had already gone to where they're from originally, out of town or whatever, so it became impossible to pull that off. So there's a game coming up against Heroes on Wednesday. Chiefs have not said a word. I suspect they will try honor that fixture because if you look at it, I don't think the league's gonna budge. We're still waiting for a statement, but let's see.
Do you think the league set a bad precedent when they denied Cape Umoya? Did they shoot themselves in the foot in a way?
No, definitely. I think the league underplayed the impact of COVID. I think when you've had a season, when you've had the 2019-2020 season disrupted by COVID in the manner that it was, I think the league in their next compliance manual should have absolutely made a provision for a scenario where games have to be cancelled because of COVID. I mean, I don't know how, obviously, talking off the cuff now, but I think between the exco, the board of governors, the member clubs, between 32 member clubs, I think they could have come up with a way, or finally they would have had to agree at some point to say, maybe let's set a minimum, to say if you have a minimum of X amount of players affected with COVID, then maybe you can write to the league 2 days before, because obviously you have to test for COVID 2 days before. That's supposed to be the protocol. I mean, there's been a lot said about whether clubs are actually testing or not, because at 850 a pop, I know there's a simpler, cheaper test which you can do, which is not 850, which is cheaper. Perhaps some clubs are doing that, especially with the growing number of players that are vaccinated. But there's been obviously talk on social media and everywhere, as it is normal, that people are saying, are clubs actually testing? Is Chiefs being punished for testing their players and revealing that they actually have quite a high number of COVID cases? But without being sidetracked, I think the league should have definitely made a provision in their compliance manual about the do's and don'ts in terms of cancelling games for COVID, because it's the reality, and it's going to stay the reality possibly for another 6 months or for another year. So the reason I think why the Chiefs game with Cape Town City had to go ahead, even though Chiefs didn't pitch, is simply because the league had set a precedent, and they could not change the rules suddenly because it's one of the big three clubs in the country. Cape Umoya were watching that situation closely, definitely watching it closely, because that decision cost them a playoff place. They missed out on being in the playoffs to get a chance to get the club to get promoted, simply because they were docked those points. So yeah, I agree 100%. The league, they shot themselves in the foot. I think it was the wrong decision to have made in January this year.
Like, for me, the silence from Parktown is deafening. Like, no word whatsoever. Like, maybe they're talking amongst each other as exco, but as the football lovers, your average Joe, your fan, like, there's absolutely nothing. Surely that tells us something is not right on the inside, that they can't even take out a statement saying Kaizer Chiefs match will happen, whether Kaizer Chiefs are there or not. If Kaizer Chiefs does not pitch up, they will forfeit the points.
Yeah. I think what is even more surprising is the fact that the chairman, Ivan Koza, has been quoted in both the City Press and the Sunday Times discussing the matter. Obviously not in great detail because it's sub judice and all of that. But the fact that the chairman was able to come out to 2 publications and sort of give them some sort of comment, I just don't understand why a statement was not issued on Friday evening or Friday after the EXCO meeting, because the EXCO meeting started at about 11 a.m. I'm sure by about 3 p.m. the meeting was done. And because John Committees, who is also a member of the executive committee, had spoken to us at Soccerladuma, he had spoken to Power FM, he'd made comments, I think, to SABC as well. So members inside the executive committee had made comments subsequent to the meeting. So I don't understand why perhaps the media department at the league could not convince the chairman or the EXCO to issue out even a brief statement to just explain things as they are, to just say the matter is sub judice. I don't think it would have been that hard to issue a statement to say, we've received a request from Kaizer Chiefs. As per the rules, the game must go ahead. This is what will happen if Chiefs do not pitch. It will be referred to the PSL prosecutor, or whatever Ivan Koza said to the City Press and the Sunday Times. I think that would have been enough, rather than silence. Because when you are silent, it gives the impression that you are not in control. It gives the impression that you don't know what you're doing, which I think is far from the truth, because obviously the EXCO met, which means they were doing something about it. They were discussing, which route to take, and the route was that we've set a bad precedent with the two Cape clubs case in January. Therefore, we cannot treat Kaizer Chiefs with kid gloves, as it were. So I don't understand. You see, if there were no statements elsewhere, then I would say, well, they took a stance not to say anything, all of them. Even then, that's terrible. But for John Committees to come out, speak to the media, for Ivan Khoza to be quoted in the City Press and Sunday Times, but the league has not issued a statement, for me is quite mind-boggling.
So here's a scenario. Golden Arrows know that there's a COVID outbreak. Now, would Arrows be wrong in trying to honor that fixture, like not honor the fixture, knowing that there's a problem at Naturena with COVID cases? So now they could end up with the same problem.
Golden Arrows must follow the rules like Cape Town City. John Committees did not go into the meeting, as weird as that sounds, he did not go into the meeting as Cape Town City chairman.
Yeah,
he went there as an EXCO member to discuss the pertinent issues. And I just think, it will be tricky for Golden Arrows to just decide not to pitch. They must do exactly what Cape Town City have done if they do not hear from the league. Which, I mean, this time, if none of the two clubs hears back from the league, it's just shocking administration, really, if you ask me. Like, I don't understand. I would not understand how the league would go for a second successive game, keep quiet and not say a word about what approach the two clubs should take in this situation. Because remember, now it's the other way around. It's Chiefs that have to fly there, So if Chiefs are not on a flight on Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning, then we know definitely that the game's not taking place, So call your sources at the airport at OR Tambo and keep a close watch on whether Kaizer Chiefs arrive at the airport tomorrow or Wednesday morning. Because if they don't, that means that game's not going ahead.
Sure. Like this is unprecedented. Like, it's so tricky.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with such a crazy big team as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. That's the other thing. That's the point that you raise is spot on, because with the two Cape clubs in January, it flew under the radar because it was in the lower division and the game was not going to be on TV anyway, So we only knew about it because obviously as journalists, that's our job to know. And the clubs will obviously make announcements, issue statements, or we'll find out, or SAFA will issue a statement, or whatever the case may be. But this one, you simply can't, because it's such a big club. Every single one of their games are on TV. So if they're not going to play, or they're not planning to honor a fixture, that's exactly what's going to happen. You are going to find out. So it's become such a huge spectacle, and it's exposing the league for the errors of the past. And I just think the league could have quietened this down by issuing a statement, even if it's 2 lines.
True.
Even if it's 2 lines,
True.
I think the league would have nipped this in the bud, and no one would be making a noise. The issue would still not have carried on until Saturday, where Cape Town City drive to FNB Stadium. They get there, the gates are locked and whatever. Just issue a statement. A one-liner. Then we know what to expect. Even if Chiefs have said we are not coming, the league says no. We are saying they must honor the fixture. Otherwise, if they don't come, we're going to refer the matter to Nande Becker. And if Chiefs are saying no, we can't honor the fixture, then the league must inform Cape Town City, look, you don't have to go there. You don't have to waste your time. The points are yours. The points are yours. We'll refer the matter to Nande Becker. Nande is resigned, but to whoever the prosecutor is, and we'll take it from there. I think it should have just been that simple. But I can't tell you. I really can't tell you why the league chose not to say a word, even up to today. Where they've again had another EXCO meeting this morning, and we are yet to receive a statement. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just shocked considering that this COVID thing is all over the world, which means leagues all over the world face the same situation. Like
Yeah,
like it's nothing new,
yeah,
like, but like you said, in the compliance manual, they should have had something just specifically for COVID. In case you have
no,
20 players, then we can play, which would apply
yeah.
to everyone. Now let's wrap it up. You mentioned Nande Becker. What's the real impact? Should we expect a backlog in cases?
I mean, there's only a backlog in cases if they don't replace Nande. Look at I'm told at the AGM in November with the member clubs, the league informed the member clubs that they are making plans to beef up the prosecution team, because remember, Nande was an independent prosecutor, pretty much working on his own. I think even from his own words, he said that, and obviously his health had not been the best. He obviously, Nande had been struggling with his health for some time. I think that's well known that he was ill and has cancer. But the league, from what I'm told, had promised to be able to beef up his team. So with him going, I think it should be pretty straightforward. But as we know by now, nothing is straightforward with our league. It should be straightforward. You get in an independent prosecutor, or you get in a team of independent prosecutors to be able to fast track these cases. Some of the issues with what that our league has is the backlog of cases, because there's simply just one person that's doing it all. I'm sure Nande maybe obviously has some help here and there, but for much of the time, if you look at the documents that go out to clubs and whatever, it's Nande that's compiling all of them. He's the sole prosecutor. But if there's a team of prosecutors, I think it will help the league. So I think with Nande's resignation probably is a blessing in disguise, from the sense that the league can revamp the prosecution department. They can get someone in, or someone in who can bring in a team of other prosecutors who can help him or her, or whatever the case may be. Just do not repeat the same mistake of having one person again. And I think even if you do have one person, it depends on the efficiency of the one person. Because in the past, you've had Zola Majavu, who was a lone ranger, but got so much done. He was actually even based. He had an office. I went to his office a couple of times. He had an office at the league's premises in Parktown. So if you're going one-man show, you probably should do it similarly to how you had it with Zola Majavu back then. If not, you need to hire. And I suspect, with the number of growing cases and the backlog, I think the league has to take a different approach this time around. I'll be very surprised if they leave this to drag on until the end of the season or whatever, where you find there are cases after cases after cases, but the league does not have a prosecutor. It would be shocking to me to learn that the league has not appointed anyone within the next week or two, or at least until after Christmas, when the new year starts. If the new year starts and the league has not appointed a new prosecutor or prosecutors, that will be shocking. That they will be shooting themselves in the foot. They will absolutely be destroying the league one way or the other.
Because we're always bragging about how good this PSL product is. It's on TV every week, blah, blah, blah. Following what's going on now, what message are we sending out to Africa, number one, and the rest of the world?
Yeah. Look, I've seen a couple of other leagues that have minimal resources or fewer resources than we have in South Africa. And from what I've seen, obviously it's not necessarily a first-hand experience because I don't live there and I don't see what goes on behind the scenes. But from what I've seen some level of efficiency. You talk about especially the leagues in North Africa. Some of the leagues in our neighboring countries, you'd say that they are doing so much more with fewer resources. And I think also it's because there's a working relationship between the FA and the custodians of the league. Whereas here, they are pulling in different directions. You've got the FA, do not have a say really in how the Premier Division or the Premier Soccer League, the NSL, is run. And so the NSL is doing its own thing and the FA is doing its own thing, which is a rare feature in any type of situation around the world. You don't have that anywhere around the world, elsewhere around the world, really. I mean, you might, if you look hard enough, you might find one or two similar examples, but not really. The mother body in most countries, the FA run the league. You don't have someone else, club bosses independently running the league when the FA is only running the national teams. You don't get that situation. So we're constantly going to have these sort of things come up. We are sending the message that our football custodians, our management in the NSL do not have a tighter grip on things. If you simply cannot issue a statement about a matter as serious as one of the big clubs on the continent, one of the big clubs in the country, seeking a postponement of a fixture, and they issue a statement at 7 a.m. in the morning, and the next day at 7 p.m., nothing has been said. The opposition team traveled all the way from Cape Town to Johannesburg, drove to the match venue, found locked gates. Referees, match commissioners were still told. I mean, imagine then the number of resources that are being.
Imagine. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, the resources that are being wasted in that futile exercise. How I'm sitting here as a journalist and I'm thinking, if I was in that position, none of that would have happened under my watch. So what more about people that have been in the game longer than me, that have got the strong mentality to run clubs, that built clubs from the bottom up? How they did not think not to make a decision like that is beyond me. I just do not understand. I can't put my head around it, unfortunately. I just cannot understand how the league let this situation play out in the manner in which it played out last week.
No, true. I also don't understand, because when it's CAF Champions League fixtures, CAF Confed, I know it's ahead of time, but they do make those changes. They do make those provisions. And
the funny part is that we had a similar situation with the Orlando Pirates fixture, where the club from Liberia were meant to travel here. They didn't want to travel here, and they've said they sent out communication
to CAF.
And CAF immediately informed Orlando Pirates, instead of Orlando Pirates hosting press conferences, preparing to host, and then getting to the game and then doing. Can you imagine? A CAF Confed Cup. Orlando Pirates are on the pitch warming up. They are in the middle of the pitch, ready to kick off, and then the match commissioner says, "Okay, the opposition did not pitch 3 point, or it's a walkover. You're going through to the group stages of the Confed Cup." Imagine the embarrassment for continental football. Ahead of the AFCON next month. So it's exactly the same thing, in my opinion, here, that our league has it just so happens that we are lucky that none of that was broadcast to the whole world. Fortunately, there were no Super Sport cameras there or SABC cameras to show us those shenanigans, because that would have been extremely embarrassing. Far more embarrassing than what happened with Royal AM during the playoffs a few months ago.
No, for me it's just shambolic, to be honest. I'm just shocked. Like, this is where we are right now. Unbelievable. Because for the amount of revenue that the PSL generates, not to just communicate with the football fraternity, regarding what's going on right now and what's going to happen in future. All right, Mazola, thank you. We'll leave it there.
Okay, always a pleasure. Sharp speech.